Hi and welcome to my 2017 lettings predictions for the forthcoming year. Now, it's been a really difficult year in 2016 from a landlord point of view in particular, with a number of quite unwelcome changes given by government. There have been three which immediately spring to mind. The first one was the introduction of the 3% stamp duty surcharge, meaning if I'm buying an investment property for up to £150,000, it's going to cost me an extra £4,500 as a transactional cost. We've got the changes to do with income tax, that if I'm a higher rate taxpayer, or if I get dragged into the higher rate through my rental portfolio, I'm going to be paying more income tax from April 2017. And in addition to that, we've then got the potential abolishment of tenant fees, and unfortunately estate agents and letting agents will not be able to absorb all of those charges. Inevitably some will be passed on to landlords, and potentially landlords may choose to pass some of those on to potential tenants as well in the form of higher rent. So there's been some really significant changes, and I think a concerted effort by government to really vilify the private rented sector in an unfair way. And the thing about the private rented sector is that it's grown massively since 2001. In 2001, there were only 2.1 million private rented properties in the UK housing stock. And up to last year, that number had increased to 4.7 million. So we've had a more than doubling of the private rented stock over that period of time. And at the same time, the number of owner-occupiers hasn't changed at 14.7 million. It went up a little bit in the 2000s, but it's come back ever since the crash of 2008. So the private rented sector is really important, and it plays a massively important function, and I don't believe that government should be attacking it in the way in which they are. And as one of the leading agents in Yorkshire, we will certainly be lobbying very hard to make sure that the government do consider very carefully any possible negative implications of the abolishment of tenant fees on tenants themselves, because clearly if the result is that agents pass the cost on to landlords and landlords pass the cost on to tenants, then people are going to be no worse off. And in particular, families, I think, will be worse off, because if you stay in a rental property for an extended period of time and you have a higher rent, you'll probably end up paying a lot more than if you'd had a small transactional cost at the beginning. So we'll wait and see what happens there. But because of all of those factors, predicting rental rises in 2017 is going to be quite challenging. So my range is anywhere between 4 and 9%. And that 5% variance is very simple. It's all about whether or not the tenant fee ban comes in. If it does, inevitably about 5% will need to be added onto rent to compensate for that lost revenue. And therefore, obviously, tenants are going to end up paying more. And I also think that the supply side, so the number of new landlords who are coming into the private rented sector, will actually slow, because they've got more transactional costs, they've got more taxation when they're actually there. And if the private rented sector does actually stop growing or even possibly contract, then the government really need to consider, because every single year since the year 2000, the amount of public rented properties, so council houses, has decreased as they've been selling them off. So there's some really interesting challenges facing the rental market, but certainly Preston Baker are here to make sure that we look after both our tenants and our landlords' interests as very best we can. And we look forward to working with you throughout 2017. Thank you very much.